Yo, 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 what's up, everybody? We are now live. What's going on? What's up, Instagram? What's up, YouTube? What's up, Facebook? How's everybody doing? We're going to give it a moment here for things to kick off. Welcome, Jam Web Dev and Ishwar Nibarte. Welcome, Nepal. Welcome, everybody. I am not Mark. I am Jason. Just stepping in for Mark today. It's going to be great. Welcome, Finland 77. Welcome, Johnny. Welcome, everybody. So, yeah, let's get everybody piling in here. All right, Terabyte Technologies. Welcome to the stream. Yeah, so we've got some exciting stuff that we're going to be talking about today. We're going to be covering what skills you need as a web developer. All right, so we will, long time Jason. I love it, Niskan. Yeah, so we're going to be talking about some cool things today, skills you'll need as a web developer, and we'll go ahead and get started here in just a moment. Let everybody pile in here. Let's make sure that we've got the YouTube stuff going on here. Come on, YouTube, throw in some love. Let me make sure that we've got the comments connected here. Let's see this, or Facebook, one of the two. All right, for those of you that are joining, welcome. I'm Jason. I'm a full stack developer here at DevSlopes, and I'm just filling in for Mark today. All right, just filling in. There we go. Salaman 4BK, welcome from YouTube. Good to have everybody here. So, yeah, let's go ahead and get started with some questions. All right, so we're going to center today's topic around what kind of skills you need as a web developer. And I guess I could kick some basic stuff off for you. HTML, CSS, and JavaScript. There you go, everybody. That is the end of the live stream. That's everything you need to get a web development position. That's all the skills you need. I'm just kidding. You've got to have more than that. So Nuno from YouTube says, hey, Jason, when are you bringing back your board company? That's right. I did have a skate company back in 2006, Prodigy Skateboards. It was a fun company. I had it for 2 years. But anyways, let's talk about web development. Questions. Let's kick off with some questions here. Again, skills that you need as a front-end web developer. So we know that we need HTML. Okay, that's the basics of web development. You're going to use that for all of your architectural things to build layouts, and so becoming good with HTML is going to be important. And there's a lot more to HTML than just kind of writing in your tags. There's actually an entire architecture. You actually get dinged on Google ratings if you use too many DOM elements. And so if you're building over bloated HTML, it can ding you on SEO. The other thing is, the simpler you can keep the HTML, the easier it's going to be to debug HTML. So you've got to know your HTML and actually a pretty good architectural practices for HTML as well. Let's see, Aditya Roy from YouTube. Does web developing make you any profit, or only Freelancer makes you money? Well, I'm a full stack developer here at DevSlopes, and I definitely make money. Freelancers make money too. You can make money in both. I used to work at Dell as a full stack developer. That was a lot of fun. I learned so much there as a developer. But yeah, absolutely, you can make money doing both. If you play your cards right, there's probably way more money in freelancing. But there's also different expectations and stresses that come with freelancing. All right. Welcome everybody who's flooding in here. I'm just subbing here for Mark. We're talking about skills you need to get a web development position. All right, a web development job. So we've talked about HTML. You got to know that. You've got to know the semantics too. So a lot of these bigger corporate companies. You're so what is this? All right. Sorry, I clicked a weird button on here. So anyways, not only do you need HTML, but you also need to know all the semantic elements. So there's W3C policies that you have to abide by, which a lot of corporate companies expect you to know. So check out w3c.com to make sure you know those practices. You also have to know CSS. All right, CSS, even if you don't like CSS and you really just like the JavaScript and the code side of programming, you've got to know CSS. All right, any web developer job that you walk into, they're going to expect you to be able to handle the design in the UI. Okay, so CSS, and you've got to be good with it. I mean, there's 100 different ways to do things in CSS, but there's also terrible practices as well. You've got to know how to work with layouts, flexbox, and the grid system. That's a big deal in web development. You got to know how to lay out those elements. And then lastly, it's really JavaScript. You've got to know how to use JavaScript and how to implement logic into your code. And once you've picked up JavaScript, you know, you can move on to other frameworks and libraries like Angular and React. So those will all come in due time, but HTML, CSS, and JavaScript are the primary skills that you need to get your very first web developer job. So now that I've explained kind of a gist of things, let's go ahead and dive into some questions. I'm going to start over here on YouTube. Let's see. So Israel, you said I've been learning web dev for a year now, got a few free gigs, but now I need a job and it's really hard getting a job. I also don't have a mobile laptop, desktop in office. So Israel, you really don't need a laptop to get a job. If you're getting a job, usually the company is going to provide you with a computer. But I guess my question is what are you experiencing that's so hard about getting a job? Are you working with recruiters? Where are you applying? Are you personalizing your resumes and cover letters for the companies that you're applying for? What kind of things are you doing? I'm a self-taught developer myself. And so, yes, there is a struggle getting a job in the first place when you're self-taught. But when you do freelance projects, that adds loads of credibility to your portfolio, and it really just opens up the floodgates to start working with recruiters and getting your foot in the door for other positions. But definitely after a year of developing, you should be getting a job. Like, that's plenty of time to be coding for and to get the essential skills that you need for getting a job. Let's see, what else do we have here? Let's see. So Aditya, HTML, JavaScript are the basic languages that you need for web development, right? Aditya. Yes, that's correct. That is correct. HTML and JavaScript and CSS are the essentials that you need for a web development job. Let's see what else we've got here. Sir Axler SF. Hi, I just started with React and I want to ask what steps to take from there. Well, React is a fantastic framework to dive into. And so if you're just starting with React, the first thing that I would do, and this sounds so boring, the first thing that I would do is obviously go to React's website, reactjs.org, I think it is. Take their tutorials to get an intro to React. But read all of the documentation. It sounds insanely boring, but it is so important, because what's going to happen is when you start learning to React and you start, Googling things online, Stack Overflow or Medium articles, after reading the documentation, you're going to be able to depict what is opinion and what is best practices. All right. So read the documentation after you do a tutorial, but heck yeah, just dive into the basics of React, and I would take a focus on React hooks. That is the future of React. Yeah, and become an expert with it. So is PHP worth learning right now? I don't know how to answer that. I would never touch HP or PHP. It's super old, and a lot of like corporate companies with legacy code are using PHP. Yes, granted, there is a lot of websites like using PHP, but that's not the frameworks that a lot of companies, in my experience, are looking for. Yeah, do something else. There's so many better options than PHP. There's so many better options than PHP. What about CSS frameworks? All right, I'm going to get to Instagram here in a second, and I'm going to take care of a few more YouTube questions. So let's see. So what about CSS frameworks? Which ones are worthwhile? Let's see. So Bootstrap is a really great CSS library for layouts and everything. They have pre-styled themes. There's Material UI, which is great. It can get kind of complicated in some sense, but that one's a good one. And then preprocessors like Sass is amazing. It'll make your development speeds increase like crazy. The region I'm located is scarce with React development, Middle East. I would do a search on like Indeed. Well, actually, I think Indeed might be US only. I'm not sure. But anyways, do a job search for the region that you're in for development positions and see which ones pop up the most. But there's two things about getting a job. One is, yes, you've got to find a market that you can get into. It has to have enough development positions, but it also has to be a technology stack that you enjoy. You have to enjoy the technology stack you're working with. So for an example, if I was in the Middle East and everything, and PHP was like the hottest tech out there and the best possibility for getting a job, I hate PHP so much that I would not learn it. I would learn, excuse me, a different framework, and maybe try to find work in the US, because Angular and React positions are super hot in the US, and so you could do freelance work, over into the US and get jobs like that. But like I said, all depends on the area and with what technology stack that you're willing to learn. Let's see. Let's get some questions here in Instagram. Let's see what we've got going on here. Let me kind of scroll through here and see if I've missed anything. All right. Let's see. Welcome everybody who's just joining in. All right. Can I learn to code? So this is from Zien BNV. Can I learn to code for full stack development because it's hard for me? Does it feel the same for everyone? Well, everyone's going to feel different about it, but here's what's absolutely amazing is you can learn full stack development knowing just, your basic HTML, CSS, and JavaScript, and you can dive into full stack because you can use technologies like Node, which means that you can write server-side code, do all your API work and things like that using just JavaScript. All right, you don't have to go and learn a different technology like Python or PHP or some other technology to write backend code. You can do all of that in JavaScript and become a full stack developer. So transitioning from front end to back end isn't as steep as a learning curve because you'll be able to be using things like Node and Express and just write regular JavaScript on the server. So. Fantastic question. Fantastic question. You mean Angular is more acceptable in USA? Franz, so yeah, React and Angular positions are huge in the USA. They're huge. I mean, it's going to vary a little bit depending on your location in the United States, like different states and cities. But both technologies super hot in the US. Great question. All right, I'm going to take some YouTube questions here. So, how to freelance full stack web development? How to freelance full stack web development? I'm not sure exactly what that question means, but you just freelance it, right? I mean, you're working with HTML, CSS, and JavaScript. If you need to implement the backend, you can use something like Mongo, and then do all your server-side code with Node. And so you can communicate with the databases. There's also headless CMS tools that you can integrate and do GraphQL calls. So there's a lot of different options. But just remember, if you're freelancing and dealing with the backend, you're probably dealing with users' information. So you've got to be incredibly savvy with the backend and security, and make sure that you don't corrupt users' data information and things like that. So the backend can be tricky. So just make sure you're super confident in it, especially if you're dealing with user information. And yes, WordPress is built on PHP, and WordPress is slow and laggy. React and Angular are much faster, but WordPress serves its purpose, right? It's for someone who, if they want to get something up and running really quick, they don't have, hardcore developer skills, and they have a little bit of tech experience. WordPress is great for that. But other than that, it's pretty laggy and super slow. Sunny asks how to get remote jobs as a person who is trying to get a junior web developer's job. So the first thing is, don't be trying to get a junior web developer job. Just apply for a web developer job. Now, there is senior roles, but don't be putting on your applications or in your searches junior web developer jobs. Just don't do this. Just stay away. You'll be surprised with how capable you actually are fulfilling a position in a development role, being a junior developer, without having to, blatantly state that you're a junior developer. Yeah, don't just apply for jobs. Just apply for it. Don't worry about it being a junior position. Just apply for the job, because more likely than not, less is going to be expected of you. And I'm just giving this from personal experience. Like, I got hired on at Dell. So I'm a self-taught developer. I got hired on at Dell a couple of years back, was there for several years. And the job description was insanely intimidating. At the time, I would say I was barely exiting the junior level developer status. And so the job position, the requirements looked very, 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 very intimidating. But I applied for it anyways, and I got hired. And then once I actually got on the job, it was literally a fraction of what I did from what the requirements of the position wanted me to do. Now, I learned a lot on the job, and I grew my skills and everything. But yeah, don't worry about junior positions. Just get a job, apply for it. .NET is hot in the Middle East. All right. .NET is it's more enterprise languages. And so if you want to do those type of things, definitely go ahead and learn it. Let's see, what else do we have here? Let me check Instagram. Let's see. Can I run a startup using these front-end tools? 100%, absolutely. Using HTML, CSS, and JavaScript, and even a framework like React. So I can't, let's see. So I had, DevSlopes. You can consider it a startup. I mean, it's been around for years now, but the technology stack that we're using here at DevSlopes is React. I mean, nothing too hardcore or insane. And even when DevSlopes had built some of their, products and everything, we had an app that was built on Electron, but it's all React under the hood, built on Electron. And so, yeah, with those basic skills, you can do anything, because with Angular or React, those different type of JavaScript frameworks, you can build, web apps, web applications. And so absolutely, you can have a startup from just those two technologies. Hadi Raza asks, is web development a dying career? Absolutely not. There is more web development positions here in the US. Okay, it's going to be different other places. Here in the US, way more web development positions than like iOS or Android positions, for an example. Web development is not dead. We especially with the pandemic, it has forced us into the online space. And so everything is online now. And so there has never been a better time to get into web development because companies cannot get enough web developers because of the massive rush to online. So yeah, it definitely isn't a dying industry. All right, we've got 10 more minutes here. We'll pull in a few more questions here. Let me check out Instagram, see what's happening. Let's see. I work with Angular for like 5 years now. What do you suggest for me to learn next? I would dive into React. So Angular is a beast of a technology because it covers end to end, right? So it's full stack, covers everything from front end to back end. The next hottest framework out there, library, is React. And I've worked in both. I worked in Angular for several years. I've worked in React for several years. And I am a huge fan of React. I don't know what it is about React, but it has been an insanely fun technology to work with. Angular is cool, but there were so many things that were Angular specific, and it just drove me insane. Whereas React is just, it uses a lot of JavaScript, things that you're already familiar with, and so and it has really simple syntax, so it's really fun. But yeah, try that out. Try out React. You spoke about transferring info from front end to back end. What is the best way to learn the section? So really, you can, and for Zen, this is a great question here. So, you've got your front end skills, HTML, CSS, and JavaScript. Well, just start taking a Node tutorial, right? Because Node allows you to write JavaScript on the server. And so it's already things that you're familiar with. So just finding a tutorial or a course on Node, and then you can choose something for the database, like there's Firestore, Firebase, or Mongo, things like that. You can kind of choose how you want to integrate into that database. But yeah, a tutorial on Node is a fantastic way to get into it. And if you know JavaScript, you're going to pick it up very, very quickly. Could you please list, this is from InNature86, could you please list some main front-end stacks and with what back-end stacks they work well with? So there's the mean stack, Mongo, Express, Angular, and Node. I think that's a fantastic full stack solution there. And then there's the, what's it called? I guess it's called the MERN stack, which is the opposite of the mean stack, right? It's Mongo, Express, React, and Node is the MERN stack. And that's a good technology. So that's probably the most popular one that I use. So when I'm doing full stack apps, one of two technologies, I'm in most cases using React. And then I will either choose to use a Mongo database, which is probably the one that I use 90% of the time. But then depending on the type of database and things that you want to bring in, you could do a headless CMS like a Contentful, and use GraphQL is another fantastic option. GraphQL is really fun to work with, and pretty simple data structures with GraphQL. All right, we're going to do another question here from Instagram, and then I'm going to hop over with some more questions here from YouTube. Do web developers live to work? That's an awesome question. So I guess I do. I love development so much. I do it in my free time. Like when I have downtime, like I can't think of my two go-tos is skateboarding and learning more things about web development. So like over the weekend, I spent a lot of time online learning new things about React, new things about CSS and different animations and different APIs that they've come out with to make all these other things more native to CSS. So yeah, I live to work. Let's see. Let's get some YouTube questions in here. Let's see. What do we have? Oh, come on, scroll bar. There we go. So Ahmad, if HTML, CSS, and JavaScript and React are like the basics to the front-end developer, what about the basics to the full-stack developer? So kind of circling back to this, Node. Implement Node into that whole mix, HTML, CSS, and JavaScript, and you've got full stack. All right. Isn't PHP important for the backend? Only if you like gross backends. The backend technology, the PHP backend technology is just I don't know. I think it's a gross programming language, but you definitely can use it. But you can do Python. There's Ruby. There's Node. There's so many other options for the backend. But you know, if you like PHP, if you're a fan of it, do PHP. It works. It works. Is Python worth learning for the backend as well? It can be. It really depends on kind of, you know, what some of your goals with the backend are. But like I said, in my experience, just keep it all JavaScript. Just do Node. Use something like Mongo, use Node and Express, and you're golden. And you can write everything in JavaScript, and that way you don't have to go learn some other technology. Where can I do freelance online? Go to like Upwork.com. There's lots of places you can post your work there. Aditya, let's see. Question 1, what is the difference between SOAP and REST? I might come back to that question. I don't have the best answer right now, so I'm not going to actually answer that right now. What does React do? React is for the user interface. So it's a UI library, and that's all it handles is the user interface, nothing else to it, nothing else. Let's see, so Josh Berg, if your viewpoint is to focus on front end, but want to build production apps, do you perhaps recommend an easy backend at Surface with a database to get things done fast? Yep. Node and Mongo, Node, Express, and Mongo. Use those 3 tech stacks with the front end, and you're golden. And that's good for production use. So when I was working at Dell, the software that I was building, we were building in React, and we used Mongo and Node for our backend. So we did everything with that. So very good production quality type stuff. Let's see. What do you think about using virtual machine for developing? I have never done that, but I have never done that. I can't answer that. How much time should we spend on JavaScript before going to React? So I wouldn't say it's a matter of time spent with JavaScript. It's about being proficient with it. You have to be proficient and competent with JavaScript before moving into React. You've got to understand more than just some of the basics. You have to have not like crazy advanced stuff, but I mean a good, solid, foundational skills in JavaScript so that you're proficient with it. You've got to be proficient. That's my answer. So however long it takes you to be proficient in JavaScript, that's how long you should learn JavaScript for. Let's see, which is the best, React or Vue.js? Let's see. I have never used, I've barely used Vue.js, barely. In my experience, I know a lot of startups that are using Vue.js. I think React is starting to move from the startup phase, like a lot of startup companies are using React, but I see a big trend of it transferring over into more enterprise companies. For an example, Dell, where I worked, we were using React. Yeah, I don't see a lot of Vue in enterprise stuff happening. Let's see how much time we just answered that question. So Sunny asks, can you please tell me something about the actual anticipated salary range for a developer role for remote jobs with little to no experience? So again, it's going to vary depending on where you live. But my very, 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 very first actual programming job, just right out of the gates. So I guess let me back up a little bit. So I learned development. I took a 12-week in-person boot camp to learn to code. And then I started a few freelance gigs just to build my portfolio. And then I started to apply for actual jobs. My first job as a programmer after being self-taught, learning to code, let's see, 8 months of just learning on my own. After 8 months, my first job paid $80,000 a year. After 3 years, in my experience, if you're not making over 100,000, you're doing something wrong. You're either not negotiating your salaries, or you're working at the wrong place, or you're not investing in your skill set to become better. Let's see. Oh, it's 4 o'clock. I'm going to take a few more questions here. Let's see if I can just burn through the rest of these right here. So let's see. Will you always have to solve those uni algorithm questions for web all the time? Absolutely not. Absolutely not. That stuff, I'm trying to think if I've ever had to really do insanely complicated algorithms and stuff in my web development profession. Yeah, little to none. It really, I guess, also depends on the position you're getting. If you're getting a position that's just regular, web development, building a user interface, maybe a SaaS tool or something, those uni algorithmic stuff, not a lot. All right. Will you always have to, let's see, we just answered that. Muka Muhammad Kadir, you posted that question 100 times. Are you trying to make me solve how many times you posted this? That's insane. All right, Josh Berg, easiest way to set up a reliable production environment, Docker staging, dev prod. No one talks about this. Any shortcuts you would suggest? Josh, that's a fantastic question. Me personally, have never really had to worry about that stuff. I mean, I've done some of that stuff, production environment setup, but usually it's with tools like for an example, using tools like Netlify or Versal. I mean, that's just basic web production stuff, though, not an actual app. That's like a DevOps position development job. I've never had to do that in a production environment because somebody else has always handled it. Let's see, Khalid. Let's see if Jquery. Where did the question go? There it is. If Jquery is important, is Jquery important, or can you move directly to React? Move directly to React. Jquery was first released to solve a lot of the DOM manipulations when web development was still fairly new. I mean, granted, yes, Jquery is still used. Don't get me wrong. It's not a dead technology. But it was used in the beginning before Angular and React and stuff came out to solve a lot of the DOM manipulation issues. It made it a lot easier to interact with the DOM. However, two things since then is, one, the JavaScript API has come so far. It can almost handle everything that Jquery can, just using vanilla JavaScript. And second is React and Angular can knock it out of the park. But Jquery is still good to know if you're using, CSS libraries like Bootstrap, for an example, who still use Jquery for some of the modals and whatnot, some of those animations. So good to know. Good to know. Everybody, thanks for the questions. I'm going to take one more peek here at Instagram, and then we're going to make this a wrap. So let's see. How long does it take to become a professional developer? So it's Emran Khan. Great question. To become a professional developer is completely dependent on you. For me, to get my first professional developer position, it took probably around 8 months from knowing nothing, being self-taught, to knowing something. So for me, it took 8 months. Others, I know it took longer. And some people, I know it took less. Some people, their brains are just hardwired to code. They're the Harry Potters of development. They're absolute wizards. Yeah, just completely depends. Let's see, 2 more questions here. Is it worth using or learning Use Reducer, or should I learn Redux? That's a great question. I actually use both. You know what? I'm going to say use both, because so when I was working at Dell, we did Redux as well. And I also built a lot of custom hooks and did the Use Reducer. So I would learn both. I have $1 billion app idea. How do I get started? Learn to code and build a prototype. All right, everybody. Thank you so much for joining this live stream. I hope you enjoyed it. If you are wanting to learn how to code and get into the job market, here at DevSlopes, we actually mentor you for that. So for an example, I am a mentor and coach here at DevSlopes, along with being a full stack developer. I will work with you personally to learn how to code and to get a job or land freelance work. Okay, that's what we do. If you're interested in getting that mentorship, that one-on-one mentorship, go to devslopes.com/apply, and you can get all that fancy stuff in the DevSlopes Academy. Again, we will work with you until you land that job. All right, I'm a self-taught developer. I've been through the ropes. I know the frustration, so don't learn to code on your own. If you're frustrated, stuck, join the DevSlopes Academy, devslopes.com/apply. Everybody listening, smash the subscribe button and throw some flames in the chats. All right, I will see you later. Ciao.